All right, let's get warped. This is a warping peg and my dog Lila. And we are going to go and run your warp threads from the peg all the way over to the loom, which I have set at approximately 140 inches away from the warping peg. It's okay to have a little too much warp, especially when you have extra yarn like I do. It's just going to give you a little bit more playroom. There's nothing wrong with that. We're going to do something called the direct warping method, which is going to mean we're going to take a lot of walks back and forth between the heddle and the peg. So I'm going to get set up. We're going to tie to our back beam, which is here, our first color. And we're going to loop it through the slot here on the rigid heddle, and we're going to take it from the center because it's a 12-inch scarf, right? So here's the center. We're going to go 6 over because it's 6 inches on either side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's our first slot. We're going to bring that through, and we're going to do 2 inches of orange, pumpkin spice, 2 inches of the yellow, 2 inches of the tan, and then we're going to repeat it on this side. So tan, yellow, pumpkin spice, and there we'll have the full warp. I'm going to start it off, and then I'll be back. So you can see the opening. What I've done is I've tied it to the back beam. I'm now about to pull it through the heddle in the slots only to start off, and you'll see it's coming through double. It needs to. And then I'll walk it right over to, I'm going to try and do this and continue with you. Sorry about the big hand there. And we'll just pull it right through. And there's my cat. And we'll put it around the peg, back to here. And then I'll wrap it around the beam again, going in the other direction, and do it again in all of the slots. We'll deal with the eye holes on here after we get the warp on the beam. Okay, now that pumpkin spice is on there, and you'll see, I'm going to run it up the warp so you can see it. There it goes, all the way across the room. Yes, I do take over the living room and kitchen when I'm warping. And so we're going to have to switch types of colors of yarn. I'm literally going to snip the pumpkin spice, attach the gold or the yellow, and as long as any knots you have are on the back side of your heddle, you're not going to have any problems. You never want knots on this side, but back here, you're fine. It's never going to come through the heddle. You're never going to have a problem. So I'm about to tie on my last set of pumpkin spice. And I thought I better show you one of the things that I particularly do. Now, you've probably noticed that we have in our house a dog. There's a black cat sitting on top of that particular footstool. And cat number 2 is happily sleeping here. There's a third one, older, roaming around here somewhere. What does this have to do with weaving? Well, cats love yarn. So one of the things is I don't make yarn into a toy for them. They have all kinds of other toys that they can play with. Second thing is I don't let yarn skitter across the floor, making it a tempting thing for them to attack and destroy whatever I'm working on. So here's what I do. Each ball has its own bowl while I'm warping, so it stays put. I pull from the center, and so it does not skitter across the floor. Then it's not a tempting little toy for my feline friends, and we don't end up with a problem. Okay. So the warp threads have now been put through all of the slots in the rigid heddle, and I'm attached to the warping peg over there. So this is where I'm going to ask for a little bit of assistance. Now, this can be done on your own. It's not as quick, and I've seen other people use different methods to be able to warp it on their own. I have a wonderful husband who's willing to be my tension as he walks into the loom as I put it on the the back beam here, this here. So I'm going to ask for his assistance, and then I'll show you now before I go and pull him away from his stuff. So what I'm going to do is these sticks will be slid along the warping beam. There we go. As I roll it in to keep the tension even. And there we go. Put those all back. And so we can see, you'll see what I'm doing. I'll pause partway through so you can see what I'm up to. What'll happen next is Reese is going to come downstairs. He's going to hold on to both sides of the yarn. I'm going to snip it in the middle, and then I'm going to start rolling it up from the other side. There's my honey. Hi, honey. All right. Go ahead. This is where it's much better to have an assistant. And please don't cut your assistant's fingers off. It tends to be rude. Or any other bits.
I'm gonna bring some hot dogs and on the floor with some ketchup.
That would freak people out, honey.
Yeah,
so we've started winding on, and you can see that Lila is with Reese, and Reese is holding tension. Not too much tension, just enough to keep it off the floor and to make it nice and neat at this end. As I'm rolling it in, I'm putting in these tension bars, and you'll see that the ratchet and pawl system works really well. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. We'll keep this in place. Now, if you're wondering, you can purchase these from the Kromsky manufacturer, or you can do like we did, and that is we went to the Home Depot or Canadian Tire, wherever you buy wood. This is trim. It comes in lengths,
8-foot lengths.
8-foot lengths, and we trim them down to
8 feet.
Yeah, so I mean it was super cheap. Then you sand it down and be nice and smooth, and it works really, really well.
When we say dollars, we're saying Canadian dollars.
That's right, because I keep forgetting that.
Probably do better.
I would say. So I'm just going to slide them in, and what happens is it keeps it from doing they call it a sausage, where all the yarn kind of bunches up at once. And then you're getting tension issues. And I've been saying all along, tension is important in this. We want to make sure it's as even as possible. Oh, there we go. All the way through. Okay, so now we have all the yarn on the back beam. We've used the extra sticks to hold them in place and keep it nice and neat all the way across. And Reese is still holding it, and you're probably wondering, what are we going to do now? Well, now Reese can actually just drop those safely, and it's not going to hurt it. Everything is locked in place with the ratchet and pawl system. And then we can take it to the next step about threading the eyes in between, which is why we have 2 in each. And I'm going to get set up with my chair, and we'll do that next. Now I'm sitting in front of the loom. There's the back beam. And this is what it looks like just after Reese put it down. You'll notice there seems to be some that are crossing over. Don't worry about it. Just give them a yank, bring them down to the bottom, control the yarn. It's just fine. What we're going to do now is we're going to pick up 2 from one slot, then separate them out. I'm going to thread 1 thread through the hole to the right, all the way across. So pick up 1, thread it through the one to the right. So you'll have hole slot, hole slot, hole slot, hole slot, all the way across. And I know that for some people who've done this before, that seems kind of silly, but having that basic of an explanation when I first started would have reduced my stress the first time I warped my loom. So let's get busy. So I wanted you to see, once the 5 were in the holes, what that would look like. So you can see I've got 5 in the holes and then 5 in the slots at the bottom. And I find at this point, with this lighter yarn for sure, that I'm going to now take this, I'm going to tie a knot as close to the end as I can to keep these ones together and out of the way so that I don't end up with problems. And every set of 5, I'm going to tie another knot. And I want to keep the knots as perpendicular as I can. Is that the right word? But, you know, so that they all kind of line up against this this beam. They're not going to be attached, but that's my visual guide as to where I want those knots. And then we will work on getting it attached to the back beam. All right, so here's what I have been doing, because, you know, having a demonstration is a good thing. So what I'm doing is you have 2 threads per slot at this point, right? I'm separating out one of them. You can see it move. I'm going to slide it out from the slot. And then you have your hook that you got with your rigid heddle loom. You're going to put it through the hole, grab onto it in the back, and then pull it through. And that's all I'm doing for this stage. The thing to remember is if you can get used to just reaching over and feeling for it and pulling it through, you're going to save yourself a lot of back problems. So try it. Learn to feel what's going on with your rigid heddle, and you'll save yourself a lot of health issues down the road. Okay, so now I have all of the threads both through the eye and the slot, so you can see how this will switch back and forth. And I need to attach it to my front beam. And I know I said back beam last time, and that was my error. It's a front beam. And we're going to do that by attaching another string, a piece of cotton actually, that will go from the beam through each one of those. Okay. And then back again. And we're going to keep wrapping it around, and then we're going to be able to adjust the tension so it's the same tension right across. I'll be back when I get it attached. I just did it again, didn't I? Ha! I'm opening.
We can cut that in.
Yeah. So what we're going to do next is we are going to put in 3 of some larger throwaway yarn that I happen to have, and it's going to even out the shed. So how we do this is we open up the shed. So we're going to start with the top, and you'll see how that opens up really nicely. Thank you to my lovely husband for helping out here. And I'm just going to gently pull this through. It does not need, whoop, see, sometimes these things happen. It's okay. There we go. We're not going to beat this down until after all pieces are in place. So up 1, down 1, and we're going to put the next one in. You can actually use sticks to put this through, but I'm already doing this now, so I'm at whatever. There's the second one. Third one, we're going to go back to the up shed. Now, because the last one fell, I'm just going to tighten that up a little bit. There we go. And the neat thing that happens when you put these in is it's going to even things out. And honestly, the first time I did it, I was quite surprised how quickly it just sort of pulls it all together. So we have them, everything looks messy. Drop it into neutral for a second. Make sure your tension's still good. It's a good thing to test it out. Then you're going to gently beat. And look what happens to that. That's not perfect. Because it's not perfect, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist, this is why I have the extra one. I'm going to throw that in. I'm just going to do a couple more so that I get a nice even shed, and I'll be back to show you once I get that. So now I have the shed all set up. We have it nice and even across. Yeah, there's a few gaps here and there. Not a big deal. As we start to weave, it will balance itself out. And this is part of that waist that I talked about. So not much. And truthfully, I'm going to have about 2 inches of fringe, and this will probably end up being part of the fringe. So next step, which I'm going to tackle next time, will be starting to actually throw some picks, as they say, and we're going to start weaving. Before we do that, though, I do want to show you a couple of things here. In my little box of tools here, I have a shuttle. I have a regular shuttle. I also have a boat shuttle. And for this project, because the yarn is so small, I'm actually going to use the boat shuttle. And my husband has arranged for me to have use of his drill so that I can load up the spools, which are here, which go into the boat shuttle. So it makes it really easy and even for when I am weaving. And so next time I'm going to load up the spools for you so you can see that, and then we'll throw some yarn around and we'll make a scarf. Have a great night. Bye.